SteamVR 2.16 dropped on Tuesday, and on its own it's a pretty solid update, a bunch of Linux fixes, some streaming improvements and a dashboard bug that's been annoying people for quite a while now, and that finally got sorted. I'll go through all of that, but then 24 hours ago something else showed up that I think is pretty big. There is a publicly visible log that automatically tracks changes to SteamVR's files every time Valve pushes an update, and a few people in the community keep a close eye on it. When it updated yesterday, it revealed a complete ready-to-go driver for the Steam Frames controllers with 3D models, button layouts and game bindings for Beat Saber and Half-Life Alyx already mapped out. There's also a step-by-step first run sequence in there that reads: pair the controllers, welcome to Steam Frame, learn the system button, pair the Wi-Fi dongle, finish the tour. And that's pretty much the out-of-box experience that you're gonna get when you finally receive the Steam Frame, and it's already written and ready to go. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Now let's start with the official changelog for SteamVR 2.16. There's a decent chunk of Linux fixes in this one, which is worth paying attention to given that the Steam Frame and the Steam Machine both run Linux. Now, GPU synchronization was improved, and the way SteamVR handles multiple processes was cleaned up, and the streaming site now correctly picks the best graphics card for the job instead of grabbing the first one it finds enumerated, which was causing problems specifically for people running Nvidia's drivers. Streaming to Quest headsets also got some fixes, with Pavlov and In the Radius 2 specifically called out as games that weren't working properly before, and on the general side, a bug where SteamVR dashboard just wouldn't open got fixed, frame drops in SteamVR Home are gone, and there were some memory leak fixes on AMD hardware that's now been fixed. Now with that out of the way, let's get into what showed up in that log yesterday. Now the entire controller driver is new. There are 3D models for both the left and the right controllers, full button layouts and ready-made game profiles. So I want to talk about what makes these Steam Frames controllers interesting, at least for me, because on the surface they look fairly similar to what you'd get with the Meta Quest 3. So no tracking rings, the cameras on the headset do the tracking instead, you got a finger placement tracking, but if you dig a little deeper, there are some meaningful differences between the Quest 3 and the Frame controllers, and the layout is probably the most obvious one. The left controller on the Steam Frame has a D-pad where you'd normally just find a thumbstick, and the right controller has 4 face buttons, which is the typical ABXY, like a regular gamepad. So the difference is that with the Steam Frame controllers, you get actually a full joystick capability with that D-pad. Now, both controllers have a bumper, a trigger and a grip button, and also a thumbstick. It's designed to feel natural whether you're playing VR game, or just browsing your Steam library on a virtual screen, or just playing a standalone 2D game. Now, Meta never really attempted that. Their controllers are built for VR first, and everything else is an afterthought. Then on top of that, we also have finger tracking. The controllers have capacitive sensors across every button, meaning the software knows which fingers are resting where, even when you're not pressing anything. And I think Valve calls this skeletal input, and it's the same system that made the old Valve Index controllers so well regarded for their natural hand presence in VR. The Quest 3 does something similar, but it's less detailed. And there's one more thing worth mentioning. The analog sticks use the same TMR technology that we find in the Steam controller. As you know, stick drift has been a problem across pretty much every VR and non-VR controller on the market, so it is great that Valve is trying to solve that, or at least mitigate it. Now here's what I'm personally curious about. Can you actually use the Steam Frames controllers without the Steam Frame at all? Will they work with the existing Steam controller plug? If you go to the Frame page on Steam, you can see that they use 2.4 GHz wireless technologies, and that's pretty much the same band that the plug uses, and pretty much every controller that has wireless capability outside of Bluetooth will use that band, so maybe it will be possible. I'd really love to use them as sort of Nintendo Switch controllers when, for example, I'm walking on the treadmill, or I just don't want my hands to be together. It's really comfortable to have a joystick that can be separated. It might sound weird, but I am really excited about the possibility of this. So that new driver, it's sitting right there in SteamVR, the gamepad mode is built in, and given how Valve approached the Steam controller and the Steam Deck, I wouldn't put it past them to have this functionality enabled so that I can use these controllers separately on my PC or on a different device. I generally love to be able to do that. And speaking of how you'd actually use this, are you more excited about the Steam Frame for VR games, or are you more interested in playing your regular Steam library on a virtual big screen? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious about where people stand on that one and what their primary use for the Steam Frame is gonna end up being. Now, the Beat Saber and Half-Life Alyx bindings being fully done and included is the detail that really stands out most to me. These are two of the most known and biggest VR games that Valve can use to show off the Steam frame, or ask reviewers who might already have review units to just use these games to show off the capabilities. And I'm gonna bet you $100 that Linus is making a video on the frame and we are going to see him play Beat Saber or Half-Life Alyx on it. If you guys are enjoying this breakdown and you're into Steam, Steam hardware, Steam Deck or gaming handhelds, consider subscribing to the channel. Now on to my last topic, that first run sequence I mentioned at the top. Let's go through it properly. Somebody actually tried it with the Valve Index, so what you're looking at right now on the screen is going through that but with the old VR headset. So you can pair the controllers, you can see the welcome to Steam frame, you can learn how the system button hides and shows the dashboard, it shows you how to pair the Wi-Fi dongle, and that's pretty much it, the tour is finished. Now that Wi-Fi dongle is the adapter that ships with the Steam frame, which lets you stream games from your PC wirelessly at low latency. It uses Wi-Fi 6E, and back in November Valve said you can use it with both USB 2 and USB 3. Now you might not actually need this, because if you have a great Wi-Fi setup at home, you don't really need this, but if you really want that low latency and your own router is not up to the task, that's basically just like a small Wi-Fi router that you can extend. It doesn't really do anything more special than that. But the fact that you can use it with USB 2 and USB 3 is pretty cool, and I think this brings up something worth talking about. There are essentially two ways to use the Steam frame. Completely standalone, running games natively on the headset itself, be it Android VR titles like the way you'd use a MetaQuest, or PC VR titles. Or separately, you can use it as a wireless PC VR headset streaming from a proper gaming PC in the other room with no cable attached. So which of these options is more appealing to you? Are you more excited about the standalone side, just picking it up and playing without needing a PC at all? Or are you really excited about proper PC VR, full quality with no wire? Let me know in the comments. And there's one more thing I think it's worth mentioning. There is a new string called Aurora Play Space, which I think points to a new visual environment, either for SteamVR Home or as the frame's default space when you first put it on. So I think this would be the space where you would be playing your 2D games inside the frame, so it's probably going to be some sort of environment like a virtual movie theater or something like that. There's also a new message type that was added that lets the frame open specific pages of the SteamVR settings on your connected PC from inside the headset, and across every language in the streaming settings, a new option has appeared which says automatically connect supported headsets when SteamVR starts. So when you first put on the frame, it just connects automatically. If you've tried to connect to SteamVR previously using a Quest 2, like the one I have, you know how painful it can be. The experience with the Steam frame will be drastically better. Now that's pretty much what I have for you today. The main release branch is building, the controller driver is complete, the onboarding tour is ready. We've been watching this thing get closer for a while, and this update makes it pretty hard to argue it isn't right around the corner. Links for the SteamVR update and that repo will be in the description if you want to go through them. And if you guys enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like. If you hated it, leave a dislike and let me know what I can do to improve. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.